We're streaming. We've muted everyone. We have spotlighted. Turned on. Okay. Mochi, this one's for you. Good evening, Rabbi Sai. That one was for Mochi. Okay, we're not going to, that's actually copyrighted by Rebel Stefansky, so we can't really use that one. But really, you get clips of little kids doing it as well. Wow, amazing. Right, so good evening to Ivor, who's here in person. Unfortunately, Michael's not here in person, but I got him on Zoom. Good evening to everybody who's here on Zoom. Good evening to those who are here on Facebook, and good evening to everybody who is here via TorahAnytime.com. Thank you for joining us on TorahAnytime.com. And if you're looking for great Torah content, you've come to the right place. Have a browse around. For those of you listening on other places, make sure you check out TorahAnytime.com and everything they have to offer. Okay, there's some beautiful ideas that I saw tonight. I want to share with you. I actually had a meeting with someone today, and then I saw the following idea in the Parasha. So I thought it was very apt to share that with you at first. I'm going to start with that. So this past week, we had Shabbat UK in Shul. And when we had Shabbat UK in Shul, we had the traveling Hasidim, the Belzer Hasidim that came to join us in Shul, which was really, really beautiful and really nice. And it was really nice to be able to have them with us and for them to enhance the davening, stay with us for the Kiddush. And one of the highlights for me was the question and answers. Did you stay for the question and answers, Ivor? Yeah? Any of you guys? Michael, were you there? Oh, you weren't there for the question and answers. Malcolm, you were there. Okay. So we had the question and answers. And in the question and answers, one of the questions that was asked to the Belzers, which is a valid question, a good question, I said, listen, how do you guys do it? I know I have a family that's relatively not so large. Asked the person who was asking the question. They have 3 children. And I find coming up with all the money necessary for me to pay for everything for my kids to be a tremendous stress. You guys have a family that could be double, triple, even quadruple the size of my family. And how'd you do it? So one of them got up and one of them said the following, which I thought was a beautiful thing. And this is where we're going to come to tonight. He said they did research that there's a community in Montreal. I'm not sure, I think it was the Tosh community. There's just a Hasidic community in Montreal. And they have found in that community that every dollar, Canadian dollar in this instance, that's spent in that community is recycled 7 times before it leaves the community. What that means to say is the following. Let's say I go to Michael and I ask Michael, I need a pair of glasses. And Michael gets me a pair of glasses. So I go to the village optician because that's the place to go. And I get the glasses there and I pay Michael money. So now Michael got whatever it was for the glasses that I paid him. Michael now takes that money and he says, I need to have my accounts done. So he goes to Martin Glass, who's part of our shul, and gets Martin Glass to do his accounts. Martin Glass then might need to have something done legally. So he calls up Ralph Donner or Howard Gruber, any of them, any solicitors in our shul, and he gives them some work. That one then has a problem with his plumbing and calls up a plumber, and it goes round and round within the shul until at one point or another, it goes outside of the shul. But that means £1 in the community is spent 7 times before it makes it to somewhere else. It's actually interesting. I remember there used to be this joke that they used to tell about Stamford Hill, that somebody said, how does the economy in Stamford Hill work? So there was once a fellow who came to a hotel, the Kadima Hotel, which is called over there. And he came and he says, I want to check out one of your rooms. I said, all right, we want to check out the room. We don't know. Sometimes people take the key and they just stay there. So we need a down payment. So you need to put down £100 over here. So I says, okay. He puts down £100 and he gets the key and he goes to check out the room. The Kadima Hotel owner says to himself, oh, good. I finally have £100. I've owed Grushinsky's, the bakery, money for a long time to be able to pay for some of the baked goods that I got. So he runs off to Grushinsky's and gives them the £100. Grushinsky says, oh boy, we've owed the Kedassia, our Heksha, we've owed them money for a very, very long time. They run to the Kedassia with £100 and drop them the £100. The Kedassia then goes to Dayan Dunner, who's one of the Dayanim, and says, Dayan Dunner, we've been owing you a bit of money. Here's £100 that we owe you. Dayan Dunner thinks to himself, he says, oh, wow, just last week, one of my kids came and we weren't able to have them at home, or one of my Mechutonim came and they stayed at the Kadima Hotel. I need to pay the Kadima Hotel the money for the stay, the £100 that I owe them. So he goes to Kadima Hotel and gives them the £100. The guy comes back with a key and hands it to the guy and says, I'm really sorry. I don't like the room. I don't want to take it. He says, fine, thank you very much. Here's your £100 back. He says, and that is how the economy works in Stamford Hill, which is very funny, except for the fact that I once told that story to someone and they thought it was hilarious, only for another person in the room to say, that's not a true story. I said, why not? They said, because it wasn't £100. It was £100 worth of vouchers. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. We can laugh all we want to about but you see what I'm saying over here. With the economy works, the same £100 made its way from one to another, to another, to another, to another, made its way all the way back to the first person. And that is what this community said. And therefore they said, number one, the way that we as a community function is we support each other. If somebody's a plumber, then we'll try to use him as a plumber. If somebody's an accountant, we'll try to use him as an accountant. Why should I go find another accountant? Not that I don't like other accountants, but why shouldn't I support my own people? And therefore, he says, we try to keep business in the community. And the other thing they do is that they always, when somebody's making a simcha, everybody chips in to help the guy out with the simcha. That's what they said at this thing, which was really, really beautiful. And I met today with Gary Freeman, and Gary Freeman tells me, I'm going to mention the names because I really think it's amazing that they came up with this. Gary Freeman says to me, listen, Rabbi, I got a call from a guy called Ruby Abinson, who's also a member in the shul, and we've been discussing this, and we thought this would be a great thing for our shul to do as well. So why should we, as members of the shrubbery, start supporting everybody else? Why don't we start internally and start supporting each other? So if there's somebody who's an accountant, somebody who's a solicitor, somebody who's a chiropodist, somebody who's an optician, whatever they might be, let's keep the business internal rather than going external. I called David Mintz, loves the idea. We've gone back to them already. We're going to have a meeting to discuss how we're going to do this. But I think this is a very, very beautiful idea and brings a community together. And coming off that idea and that story is what I wanted to bring to your attention, the first idea over here. That's brought out by Rav Zalman Sorotzkin in his Sefer Oznaim LaTorah. It says, if you will sell a sale to your friend, or you'll buy something from your friend, you cannot charge extra. This is Perek Chofei, Pasuk Yudalet, chapter 25, verse 14. When you sell things to your friend or when your friend buys things off you, neither of the two of you should go through the practice which is called Oino. And the way Oino works is as follows. Let's say there's a set price for an item. Let's call this item as £100. And you don't realize that this item costs £100, and you go into shop and the guy's charging £150 for it. And you walk out with it, and then everybody says, you spend £150 on that. That item's £100. The RRP on it is £100. How do you spend £150 on it? So the halacha says that's called oino. That is called overcharging. And you're allowed to go back to the shop, and you're allowed to say to the shop, excuse me, you've overcharged me. I'd like to have my money back, and you can give it back. Similarly, let's say you as the salesperson, for whatever reason, don't realize what your true costs are, and you think this costs £50. You're selling it for £50. And in reality, it costs you £100, and your accountant or whoever it was made a mistake, and you're going to end up selling a lot of items at a loss. So that also doesn't work. So again, if that works now from the seller's side, if the seller undercharged the person by a significant percentage, 20% or more, then the seller has the right to call back the item and recall the sale and to say, listen, this sale is null and void because it's not right the way it's been done. Okay, that's if you buy. Now, the question that Rav Sorotzkin asks is, why do we need to say when you will sell something to your brother, or you will buy it off your brother? The fact that we say ish as ochiv, a man to his friend, that means whether it's the seller to the buyer or the buyer to the seller. So there we don't have to say whether you buy something, where you sell something, don't get yourself involved in the practice or not. Just say when there's a transaction that goes on, neither the two is allowed to do I know. But why do I have to say if I buy something or if you sell something? So therefore, he says what he therefore concludes is that there's another chiddush that's brought out over here in this pasuk. And the pasuk says the following: if you're going to buy something, la'amisecha. If you have a chance to buy something, first person to go to see if you can buy it, go to a Jew. Try to find and support your own. Oy konoi, you have to sell something, right? So if you have to sell something, la'amisecha, you should try to sell to a Jew. Oy konoi, you want to buy something, miyad amisecha. Again, try supporting your own. And this is what that's why the pasuk needs to tell you both in selling and in buying, whatever it's going to be. Try as much as you can to support your own. Because at the end of the day, it's a wild world out there. It's a difficult world. Making parnasa is not always so easy. Many people struggle with their parnasa. And if we went and supported our own rather than running around and finding the cheapest thing online and making sure that we got it cheaper. So I saved £5 and I bought it online on Amazon, and therefore I didn't have to give this Yiddish fellow parnasa. You're right. Maybe it's clever. You sold £5. You save £5. And you add them all together, maybe it adds up to a lot of money. But in the end of the day, if you have to think about it also on the other side of things, is that when it comes to your services, they might also want to save themselves a £5 and they won't use you either. And what ends up happening is all the little people in between get squeezed out, and all the big box shops like the Amazons, they end up making all the money because they can save themselves another £5. Yes. That was very clever of me. I just spilled this cup of water all over myself. Oh, Waldman. Really interesting. Yeah. And sometimes they're not even cheaper. Sometimes you go to Amazon, they're not necessarily always cheaper and everything. There's no way of knowing what the price is going to be. But even if he is more expensive, that's what the Torah is telling you. If you can buy now, again, if somebody's going to take the mick, so that's one thing, right?
I didn't know it was cheap as Amazon. I went there because I thought I'll go to somebody local.
Yeah, you might as well go to somebody local and you give them, but here it is, like, so you realize now you went to somebody local, you supported a local fellow, and you gave him parnasa, and you ended up getting a better price. So it all works out great, right? But even if it didn't work out that way, right? Even if it was slightly more expensive over there. So I remember at one point or another, I need to have something done in America, an American tax return. And there was a fellow over here that had given me a bit of advice, and I wanted to give him the business. And I went to him and I said, I'd like you to do the tax returns for me. He says, no problem. That'd be £1,000 plus VAT. The £1,000 plus VAT is £1,200. It's £1,200 for a tax return. I earn all my money PAYE. I pay as you earn. There's nothing to do on my tax return. What costs $1,000? He goes, well, listen, you're getting an American service in the UK, so you're going to pay extra for it. I said, well, guess what? There's something called phone and email. I can get an American service in the UK just by making a phone call to America. In the end, I did, because in America, instead of being £1,200 at the time was $1,600, in America, I paid $350, right? Or $300. And so I said, like, look, I can't sort of like pay 5 times over the odds. I want to support someone local. I'll pay an extra 10%. Fine, I'll support someone local. But there's a limit. But it gives you the idea of if you want to buy things, first port of call, try to see if you can support a local Jewish person. And that was this idea that they brought out. That was what the Belzer said. And it's a beautiful idea. And I hope it's something that we together will be able to do as a community as well. Okay. Next. The Pasuk. This very much spoke to me, and I think it's a beautiful idea. Let me just see where it was. Here we go. So we're in Perek Chaf Hey, Pasuk Mem Beis. We're talking about Jewish people that had to sell themselves as slaves. Ki avodayhem, they are my slaves. Asher Yitzei I took it out of the land of Egypt. Lo yimochum because of it. You cannot sell them forever like a slave. Lo yisirde by befarich. Don't work him too hard. V'yareisam elekecha, and you should be afraid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So here's an interesting thing. Anytime the Torah says v'yareisam elekecha, you should be afraid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it means there is something over here where I would have been able to trick somebody into something that really isn't right. The Ereis Melekacha tells you, yes, you might be able to trick somebody into something, but you got to know God's watching. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see a bit later on if we still have time. We'll see the discussion about ribis as well. That, for example, you're not allowed to charge interest from somebody else. But if you have a non-Jew's money, you can lend the non-Jew's allowed to lend other money with interest. So let's say I have £1,000 I want to lend someone and I want to charge them 10%. But what I'll say is it's not really my money. It belongs to Paul, the caretaker in shul. And I'm just meant to. So what am I doing? I'm charging you interest, and I'm making believe it's a non-Jew's money, and really it's not. So Torah says, you gotta, pardon? I will take the profit, but I'm saying it's not my money so that the guy doesn't feel bad for paying me ribbis. So it says, you might be making a ribbis over here. You got to be careful. Kodesh Baruch Hu's watching. So here too, we say, you're not allowed to work him too hard. You should be afraid of Kodesh Baruch Hu. Kodesh Baruch Hu is watching. So the question that I saw tonight asked, can't remember who asked it. I saw on the Sefer Mizkanim as Boinon, but I don't remember who asked the question. He says, what does it mean to say, don't work him too hard, be afraid of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Everybody can see if you're working someone too hard or not. Yeah, we know what's considered slave labor and what's not considered slave labor. And therefore, why do I need to be Yereshim Elokech on top of it? Why do we need to tell you that you have to be afraid of a Kodesh Baruch Hu? Don't work him too hard and be careful. Hashem's watching. So even though nobody else will chap, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will know exactly what you did. Everybody will know exactly what you did. Because when you're working somebody like an absolute maniac, people know, people see, people realize, right? That's the question that he asked. So he says a very beautiful idea. He said that we know that Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, it says, Vayavidu Mitzrayim es Bnei Yisrael befarach. Bnei Yisrael enslaved the Jewish people, befarach, hard, heavy slavery. But Rashi says, you know what befarach means? Befarach can actually, it's a word that can be split into two, and it means beferach, with soft language. And they say, what happened? How did the Jewish people fall into this whole idea? How did the Jewish people end up as slaves? So the first day they made a big announcement. It said, hear ye, hear ye. The king wants to now build a new town, a new city, and everybody should come forward. We need everyone. And even Pharaoh showed up himself and started schlepping bricks himself also. And everybody goes, wow, this is amazing. Pharaoh himself is schlepping bricks, and everybody started helping out. And it was really, in the beginning, it was a project that we all as Egyptian citizens will be involved in together. And Jewish people always want to show that they are good citizens. I think as Jews, that's one of the things we like to do. We like people to think that we are good citizens of the country. So they went all out, and they go and they do exactly what we said. They start working. And the first day, all the Egyptians worked along, and the king worked along, and slowly but surely the king stopped coming, and slowly but surely the Egyptians stopped working. And suddenly the Jew starts relaxing, and they're like, hey, you're not allowed to relax, whip the Jew. He's like, what in the world? This is voluntary work. Not anymore. Now it's become mandatory. And the Egyptians basically tricked and fooled the Jewish people into working as slaves. Well, they were tricked and fooled into working as slaves because they were softly spoken. They softly convinced the people that this is what they should do. And here the same thing is true. He says, you know what? There are times, and I've seen this again and again, there are people that take advantage. You ever had people who take advantage of you? But sometimes they take advantage of just not nice about it. But sometimes, like, they'll come to you and they'll say, Michael, you're really, really so kind. What can you do for me for those glasses? Right? Well, and suddenly it's like, but they start with the kindness and they smear you and the this and the that. Or let's say, for example, I don't know, I have somebody that I deal with who's unfortunately he's got special needs. And whatever you offer him, he's always asking for the next level. Right? Can you walk me home? No, I can't walk you home. I need to do something. Please walk me just halfway. All right, I'll walk you halfway. You walk him halfway. Well, you're halfway there already anyway. Maybe walk with me the other half. Right? And you're like, hey, listen, do you know what I mean? I wasn't going to walk you the first bit either. Okay? And there's a certain neediness over there, and it's done almost in a very manipulative way. And you say to the guy, hey, stop manipulating me. Okay? You've asked me for something. I said no. You asked again. I said no. You asked the third time. I said, fine, I'll do some of it. And then you come back. Right? And sometimes you have people that have said they won't be willing to do certain things for you. And then somebody else asks anyway, come on, you're doing it most of the way anyway. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Just a little bit extra. That's the ferach. That is the soft-spoken way of doing things. And sometimes we get people to do things that they themselves are not happy with doing, but it's not by yelling at them, because in general, when you yell at people, you don't really get the results that you want. Rarely do people do what you want them to do because you yell at them. But oftentimes you catch a lot more flies with honey than with vinegar, don't you? And suddenly you speak to them softly and you ask them nicely, and they're like, yes, of course. I feel bad. Okay, I'll do it. You make them feel bad. So here he says the same thing is true in the same way that's true. And you'll find that with lots and lots of people that sometimes get taken advantage of because they're too nice. And I've found that again and again. Sometimes you have people that are too nice and people ask them and they just don't know how to say no. And you get taken advantage of again and again. That's not to say don't do chesed. Yes, do chesed. But your chesed has to have boundaries. And the people that are asking you have to have boundaries. And if the people that are asking you for the chesed don't know how to respect those boundaries and keep on encroaching on your boundaries and asking you for things again and again and again that they really shouldn't be asking for, you know what that means? That means that they're now taking advantage of you. That's left the realm of chesed and turned into this perach. Says whoever it is that said this word in the Zekanim Espoinim. You're going to get, this is talking about a Jewish slave. So you have a Jewish slave, you're not really allowed to ask him to do certain things. So if you force him to do certain things, excuse me, I've not been paid for that. But sometimes, yeah, I know you're not paid for this, and I know you don't have to do it if you don't want to. So I hate when people say, don't feel bad to say no. Have you ever heard that one, Michael? People say to you, Malcolm, do people say to you, don't feel bad to say no? Have you ever heard people say that to you? Yeah? What do they mean to say, don't feel bad to say no? They really don't want you saying no, and they're giving you a guilt trip. No. It's okay. Really, you don't have to feel bad to say no. I'm pushing my luck over here, and if you say no, I'll fully understand. Yeah, okay. What do they really mean? Yeah? And suddenly you listen to them, and you're like, they're saying A, but they mean B. They're not, their mouth and what they're saying doesn't really, it's not congruent. So over here as well, you ask the slave, can you do this for me? And the slave says, I'm not really that happy to do it. You know what? I would never, and then you start the following. I'd never normally ask you to do this, but as a one-off, I know it's just a one-off, and I know it's not in your contract, and I know you can say no, and please don't feel bad to say no. But could you just, and then you say that? Says the Torah, you're making the guy do something he's not happy with, but not by forcing him, not by whacking him, not by screaming at him, by just being a little bit more demanding in a very nice way. That guy ends up doing what you want him to do without being yelled at. Says the Torah, you're not allowed to do that. You have to know Hashem is listening. Hashem is listening to what you're saying, and he knows if you're being manipulative. Hashem says, I don't want you to manipulate people into doing things that they're not happy with. And if you are doing that, you get punished for it. There's a punishment for doing that. Somebody's not happy to do something and they're doing it anyway because you manipulated into them. Not great. So we mentioned it over here by Avodim. We mentioned it here by the slaves. But the truth is, we don't own slaves anymore. But the idea still is true. If you're going to try to be manipulative, I don't mind if you don't want to do it. Please, it's just an extra favor. I'm being cheeky. Oh, can I be cheeky? There's another one. Can I be cheeky? No, why you want to be cheeky? Just don't be cheeky. Don't ask me things you're not supposed to ask me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't really ask you. So then don't, right? It's the Nishtin Shabbos Geret of favors. When you say Nishtin Shabbos Geret, then you can say whatever you want on Shabbos because you say this is not really Shabbos talk. So if you say, I shouldn't really ask you, then I can say whatever I want to. This isn't really right for you. Yeah, now I say whatever I want to. Don't take offense. Now I can say whatever I want to. Right? So that's what the Torah is saying. When you ask people, when you speak to people, you have to know that what you're saying, God is listening. And if it's wrong, there is also a punishment to be had for it. Okay. We're going to mention one last thing, which is the following. Very interesting idea also brought over here Also in the same sefer Mizkenim as Bainon. Parak of Hey Pasuk your test. We go back to Shemitah. V'nosna haaretz period. The land will give its fruit. Ba'achaltem l'soev, and you will eat and you'll be satisfied. V'shaftem levetach aleh, and you will be very securely dwelling upon it. So v'achaltem l'soev says Rashi af b'soecha me'ayim tehei by bracha. Even what you eat will be blessed, and that you won't even need to eat that much, because whatever you eat, you'll be satisfied with. That in and of itself is a bracha. That if you have a little bit, you can be satisfied with a little bit, and you don't need a tremendous amount. So I saw in this sefer again, I need to write down next time who says what, because it's not fair. The halacha is that you should try to say over, whatever you say something over, you should mention the person who said it. That's called Omer Davar B'Shem Omer, saying something in the name of the person that had originally said it. So really it's wrong of me to do that, but I'm just mentioning, I'm quoting the sefer I saw it in, and you can look it up over there. He says, if you're going to say V'nosna haaretz period, the land gives its fruit, and then on top of the fact the land gives its fruit, V'achaltem l'soeva, says Rashi, that you're going to eat and you're going to be satisfied, and you're not even going to need to eat so much because you're going to feel quite full after eating a little bit. So the question is, if God is making us full from a little bit, why does he have to give us so much produce? Right? If I need only 10,000 pounds to live, so what I need, why God says, I'll bless you, you get 100,000 pounds. Right? If I need 100,000 pounds and then there's a blessing, God says, okay, I'll give you 100,000 pounds. That's a blessing. If I need only 10,000 pounds, but to give you 100,000 pounds and to say, and not only that, I'll bless you, that 10 grand's enough. So why do I need that blessing? If I have 100,000 pounds, let me use 100,000. Yeah. Okay. So it's not about sharing, because it's about Shemitah. So we're not really, and the money you might be able to say that, right? So what he says over here is a very beautiful idea. And the last idea that I want to share with you tonight, and that's the following. Let's say I make 100,000 pounds and I actually use up the 100,000 pounds that I make. So that's the money that I make. I live very comfortably. I drive a nice car. I live in a big house. We go on nice holidays, etc., etc. But I use up all the money that I have. How do I feel about the money that I make? Slightly anxious. Do you know why? Because if I make 100,000 pounds and I spend 100,000 pounds every year, what if next year I make 90?
Yes.
Yeah, I won't have enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know for my lifestyle, I need 100. And if I don't make 100, I won't have what I need. So I'm nervous. It worries me. What should I do? So therefore, even though you might say, yeah, but how many people in this country even make 100,000 pounds? Making 100,000 pounds is a lot of money, right? So if not many people are making that money, what are you moaning about? Why are you complaining? Yeah. But the truth is, it makes you nervous. It does, because if I make 100,000 pounds, but I spend 100,000 pounds, it gives me nerves. But what if I made 100,000 pounds? Now, Kodesh Baruch Hu, on top of that, gives me a bracha that I used to manage on 100. Now I managed on 50. This year I managed on 50. How do I feel now about my 100,000 pounds? Very smug, because I was able to manage on 50 and instead of 100, and I've got another 50 I can put in the bank, or I can buy property, or I can buy stocks with, or I can invest, whatever I want to do with it. Right? I feel much better about that. Says the Torah, if the land gave over its fruit, but everybody ate everything that they had to, in reality, it would still create certain anxieties amongst people saying, is this really enough? Do I actually have enough food? Maybe I don't have enough food. So you know what God says? I'll give you tons of food. He says, okay, you gave us tons of food. And then I'm going to also make sure that whatever you eat, you'll feel comfortable with. I'll make sure that whatever you have, even if you eat a little bit, you'll be left with tons. And that way, not only do you have enough food, you got more than enough food. And then the anxieties about not having enough fall away. Because now suddenly it's like, what do you mean I don't have enough? Sure, I have enough. I got more than enough. Because I made 100 grand and this year I only needed 50 to live on. So I have 50 extra. That's a great feeling, right? When you have not enough month at the end of the money, that's always not fun. But yeah, but when you got a lot of money and you spend all of it, not bad. When you got a lot of money and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you a special bracha that even if you don't, that you can even manage with less, that's wonderful. That's this bracha. The land will give its fruit, and then on top of it, you'll need less. And so when the land gives its fruit, you'll have even more to keep for yourselves because you'll need even less to be able to live on. So those are the ideas I wanted to share with you tonight. Again, thank you very much to those of us who joined us on Facebook Live, Zoom, in person, and Torah anytime. If you want to get in touch, it's davideisenberg@gmail.com. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Look forward to Mitzvah Hashem to seeing you together next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice.
Thank you.